Our guest today is Emilia McCarthy. She's an actress, dancer, and singer. And you might know her from Disney Zombies or Zapped, or maybe even from the Netflix original horror movie Hemlock Grove. Not only did she play in a whole lot of movies and productions at quite a young age, she was nominated for a bunch of awards, won a few, and she wrote a book at 8 years old. So I think we are up for an interesting conversation today. Welcome, Emilia. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there something you would like to share on introducing yourself?
Thank you, Kathy. No, I think you did a great job. That was a really nice introduction.
So we were just having a little conversation, and you were talking about how you wrote that book at 8 years old with your father, and that he was such a creative, or is a creative soul and spirit, who took you on this journey of building this together at 8 years old. So how was that for you? How did you get inspired, and how did his creativity reflect on you in your journey to become this successful artist that you are today?
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny because I've been in this industry for so long, I don't even remember how it happened. Like it's a part of me now, but I do think that because my dad is so creative, I think that must have been an influence growing up. So yeah, I had this dream and I told my dad about it, and his automatic thought always when he hears a cool story is, let's write a short story. Like that is his favorite thing to do. So we kind of sat down together and he created this story out of my dream, and I did the illustrations.
For me, I'm specialized in working with highly sensitive artists, because a lot of creatives and a lot of artists are highly sensitive people without knowing this from themselves. And you're already sharing about this creative father that you have, and then you have these many gifts, singing, dancing, acting. Those are actually three three talents that come from the right hemisphere of the brain, where all that creativity lies, and which is also stronger activated for highly sensitive people. Did you know about the characteristic being an HSP, or is it like something new for you? Is that something you recognize yourself in? I'm really curious to find out.
Yeah, I think, like I said, because it's been a part of me for so long, it's hard to pinpoint it as a separate characteristic. It's more so just a part of me. Like I always tell people, if I were not to act anymore, like I would feel like I lost a part of myself. Even as a kid, like I would always be putting on shows for my parents' dinner parties, and like, not even, asked for. Like I would just show up and make these shows. And, I was always very creative, and I think it was kind of just a part of me. You're kind of born with certain preferences. And because thankfully I was able to nourish those interests and, create a career out of it, I think it's just kind of flourished into who I am.
Beautiful. And that's something that I do see in day-to-day life, that when you have this environment, especially while growing up, especially for us empaths and HSP, when you have a nurturing environment, those talents can really shine through. And studies have even shown that people who are not HSP, that it doesn't matter how their environment reacts to them, they will always perform at the same neutral level. But for HSP, for example, when we have an environment that is negative, unsafe, breaking us down and those kind of things, we tend to underperform. But when you grow up in an environment that supports you, that challenges you, that gives you trust and confidence, you overperform, or if that's a word. But you can get results higher than the average person, because you are using those talents that other people don't have. So I'm really happy to see, actually, because I think that is probably the case for you, because you already such a young age, you were stimulated by your father who was, bringing you into such a big process. It's so cool to see what happened there.
Yeah, I think that is super interesting. And, I was lucky enough to have parents who are my number one fans and supported my dream and nourished it. And, ultimately helped me become what I am today because I was so young, you know, I needed them to help. So I'm very thankful that I had the right environment for sure.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see that that has brought you to where you are today as well, because that is not a small list of accomplishments when you see what you've already done and achieved. I know that you also have a degree in psychology. Is that something that you still put to use? And what is your take on mental health in the industry?
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting about psychology is that you can always use it as a human being. Um, the reason why I was so interested in it was because it's, the study of human behavior, which really is an extension of acting. So ultimately, I can put those two things together. So it would always help me for sure. Um, my thoughts on mental health in the industry. Kind of complex. I think that we, like you said, we're naturally more sensitive creatures, the artistic minds. So it's interesting that those are the people who put themselves in the most vulnerable profession. Actors are asked to do the craziest things. And I don't think there's any profession really where, you are asked to be so vulnerable in front of an audience of people. So, um, on top of that, there's so much rejection in the industry that I think it helps, to build thicker skin. And it's kind of just like second nature to me now that, you audition like 20 times and maybe you book one, and so it's something that I think also helps you become stronger mentally. So there's a lot of layers to it.
Beautiful. Yeah, and then again, it's so interesting that because you already have this strong, nurtured mindset, that you can take those no's in and just keep on going and not let them affect you too much. But just, for you, it's probably, correct me when I'm wrong, it's probably like, this is part of my job. I do 20, I book one, that's what it is, no big deal. But what I see when I work with actors and singers and songwriters, for example, is that they really get wrecked by all those no's. But that's because their confidence and their self-belief was already not in a strong nurtured way. So they weren't, it always reflects on the way you are feeling as a person about yourself. So again, I think it's so strong that that is your attitude and that is the way that you deal with it, because that's what is making you great at what you do. And that is also why you can keep doing it, probably.
Yeah, and I think I was lucky, like I've said, is because I started so young, it just kind of was part of the process. And because I started at a point where the stakes weren't very high for me, like I was just doing it for fun. It was a hobby. And, now it is my career. So sometimes the stakes are higher. So sometimes I do get more pressured or nervous. But because it's just been a part of the journey for so long, like you said, I just take it like it's just part of it. Like I don't even think of it. It's so rooted in what we do. It's not like, a job interview. Like if you were to do 20 job interviews and just like book one like every single time, that really could get you down. But it's really like it's just the way it is. You're always auditioning. And there's always that sense that you're not in control of your career a lot of the times because there's so many aspects that go into choosing one person for the role, and sometimes it's out of your control. Sometimes you're not the right height or you have the same color eyes as whatever. So that's why a lot of people in the industry end up taking it into their own hands, and they start producing their own things. And so that's recently a very common route, especially with all the different like media outlets you can do now. So it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. It's beautiful. You are a child star who grew into it and then as an adult kept on creating. But we've known, especially like in my younger days, you also had Lindsay Lohan and those kind of girls who really lost their path. What do you think happens? Because, there is a lot of pressure on all of you. But what do you think is the difference between you and them? And why do you feel like so many younger artists are actually having so much trouble to stay on their highest path? Let's just say it like that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, the nature and nurture, right? Like who you are born into this world, you have certain, susceptibilities to certain things. And if, you are triggered in a certain way in your environment, it can lead to, some negative outcomes, like, too much pressure in the industry with someone who has an underlying, tendency of depression or anxiety. The pressure in the industry can be a huge trigger for that. And so I think that's why going into an industry like this, where there is so much pressure and rejection, you have to really take care of your mental health firstly. And that will, I think, be the key to, success and being able to stay in the industry for, a longer period of time.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's also true that, 10, 20 years ago, mental health was still something that was only talked about when it already was too late and when people were going off the rails. And then it's becoming this negative, heavy thing. Well, when I look at my work, for example, it's not even about the heavy stuff. It's about moving forward, staying aligned with yourself, staying true to yourself, living your highest potential and your highest light, and just putting yourself out there in the world. And I think that's why we're also having this conversation, so that we can, bring more and more of this out in the world, so that we can create more consciousness about it, and so that people know there's nothing wrong with you when you are actually investing in your mental health, because top leaders do it every day. They get support on that every day. Mm-hmm. So, there's still this stigma that we need to move around.
Yes. And I think recently something that's happened that was interesting was Simone Biles in the Olympics, her having to opt out for certain parts of the competition because of her mental health was interesting. I found that it was talked about in the same way as a physical injury in the Olympics. She couldn't perform because she had a whatever ankle tear. It was talked in the same way that her mental health was struggling. And I think little things like that really help break down the stigma.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why, me personally, I'm very grateful to Simone, because I think that she's really helping to break the taboo around the mental health issues, because there is still so much that is being left unsaid. And I've worked with actors who've done great movies, and still, they feel like no one can know that I'm doing this, because otherwise they'll think I'm hard to work with, or that I've got issues, and that's just something that we really need to get out of the world, because it's just a shame that people have to hide themselves while actually they're doing the most powerful thing in the world, making themselves stronger, working on themselves, and creating more resilience. So I always think it's so strange that has not been accepted in the industry yet. Do you have like certain routines that you use in order to keep your resilience high and your energy high and yourself in balance?
Um, I think really just keeping myself busy when I am not working in the industry. I am in school. So there's always things I choose to do in life that feel like I'm being proactive with my life and helping me move forward and not just feel stagnant. So, I've been in school this whole time. So it's something that keeps my mind stimulated and it makes me feel like I'm still doing things. Because there's a lot of waiting in the industry sometimes, especially with the pandemic, like, we were running at like 20% for almost a year, and it was shut down completely at first. So thankfully I've had the chance to remain in school, and that really helps me, really, just to keep busy.
Yeah, but that's a great way of, and I would say, oh, if you have to keep yourself busy in order to feel happy, that would be something, that we could look into. But what you're saying is something else. You're actually saying, I'm educating my brain, and it's in a proactive way so that I can keep on growing and that I feed myself, nurture myself with positive input in order to keep on growing. That's
Mhm.
that's a very interesting story, because I think that is, yeah, very productive, but
Yeah.
also very nurturing. Was there a challenge in your career that you say like, this is something I really had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
Um, yeah, one thing that comes to mind is making the transition from a child actor to an adult actor. There was a moment in time right before I reached into like the adult world where, I was working so much. And then as soon as you turn 18, all these other doors are opened and the competition just gets so much greater. And also because I have done so much Disney and so much Nickelodeon and kids things, also it's been a transition to try to grow from that and, start to do more adult things. So, I'm still in the process of it. So I can't tell you how it'll end, but so far, it's been going okay. And I'm sure that is a struggle and transition for a lot of actors who start young.
And what is the thing that helped you most in this transition? Because you have already done adult movies, and like the Netflix horror movie and some others. What is the thing that has helped you most to keep that vision clear and to keep on moving forwards in that transition, and not getting stuck in, oh, I don't want to be this role anymore? So how did you move forward?
Yeah, I think it's just the mentality to not give up and just continuing to push through. I never stop auditioning. So sometimes I get an audition where there is a part of me that says, I will never book that role. And you have to ignore that and think, they wanted me to audition for this, so they can see me as this role. So I think there's a part of me that, because for so long I was booking the same sort of roles, I think that it's affected the way that I perceive myself as well, which is an interesting thing being in the industry for so long. It grows with you, how you book certain roles, you start to think that's how you're seen as a person. So I think that's why a lot of people get typecasted. And I think then that leaks into how you see yourself as a human. So that's why you have to sort of not think about that. And this new role I'm doing is very different from what I've been doing. So I think, that's helped me be like, okay, like these people see me as something else. So maybe I am not just that one type of person.
I think it's very powerful what you're saying there, because when it comes to the mindset part of evolution, it's exactly this. You've you've rocked it. It's about shifting the thoughts, like you say, and it's about the way you perceive yourself. Because very often when actors get stuck or in a certain role or character or in not landing the gigs that they want to land, it's very often because they see themselves in a certain way and they don't even believe or see the potential of other opportunities. And it is about creating that vision for yourself and being open for those new things, but also with really an open mind, not just, I'll do it, but in my, in my subconscious thoughts, there will still be that voice saying, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to get this anyway because blah, blah, blah. But actually just like show up, be open, and get that childlike curiosity, like, who knows what might happen? Who knows what can come from this and what else we can start creating? And I think you are magically strong, in bringing that attitude to the game. And that's also why you are landing all these roles. And you were talking about when we had a chat earlier about 2 roles that you are working on currently, and that how you could like already share a little bit of details with us. So I'm excited. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we just finished filming the third Disney Zombies movie. So that is very exciting. It should be coming out sometime in the winter. And I am also currently working on a new CBC and CBS medical drama called Skymed, which will be coming out sometime next year on Paramount Plus as of now. And it's a really good show. I'm really excited about this one.
And what can you share about the show that we can, get excited about and that we really want to see it?
Yeah, so, it's a medical drama. So there's lots of good stuff in there. It follows a group of heroic young pilots and nurses in the Canadian North, where help and survival are thousands of miles away. So there's a lot of scenes in little planes. And so it's like high stakes, lots of drama. It's actually inspired by Julie Puckrin, which is the creator, her sister and brother-in-law, who actually met flying air ambulances in northern Canada. So the characters are diverse and the storylines reflect the communities of the North, which I think is going to be really important.
That's really cool. That's really something that is going to resonate with a lot of people because it's like based on true experiences and based on, real people a little bit in this case. That's really cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's based in Manitoba and it's set there as well. So, CBS and Paramount have, found it to be a good show that, we're in Canada and we're saying we're in Canada, which isn't always the case. So,
yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. And a last question. What is next for you? What's the big vision? What's the dream for you?
Yeah, I think it's really just to continue this transition into a new chapter in my career and continuing to grow as an actor and consequently grow as a person. I think that each role that challenges you really helps you grow as a person as well. So I really am just trying to ride that wave and continue down that path.
That's cool. And if you say, grow as an actor, what does that mean to you?
What that means to me is to do more challenging, more dynamic and layered characters.
Okay, that's cool. That creates a clear vision of where you want to go. And I've noticed that the more clear you are on your vision and the way you feel when you are living that vision, the easier it is to start attracting it in real life. So that's why I always
Right.
like to, like, that's, yeah.
Really get the detail. No, it's true. That's good advice.
So what is your next step to get to that vision?
I think really it's just about articulating that to my team and really just going for those roles and sort of maneuvering my career into that lane. Um, I think something that actors forget sometimes is that you can say no. Like sometimes you can, and sometimes it's healthy too. A lot of the times it's good to say yes to everything, sure, you know, but sometimes if you want to direct your career to a certain path, sometimes you have to say no, to certain things and cross your fingers that, it will ultimately help you get to the goal that you want to get to.
I think that that's a very important part of the journey that, like you say, a lot of actors forget, that they can actually stay true to themselves and they don't have to do everything. And I remember Matthew McConaughey sharing that story in his career, because he said every time they resent the script and they offered more money, the script started getting better and better.
Oh
So
yeah, I think I know this story. Yeah.
I really loved it when I saw that, but still he stick to it, and he said, you know, I'm not going to do this because this is not who I want to be anymore. I want to be that guy, and that vision was clear. But it also
Right.
helps, the clearer the vision is, the easier it starts to get to say no to the thing, because you only see what's not working for you when you see where you want to go.
That's very true. Yeah, and that's advice that I will definitely be taking away from this. So
I'm so happy. No, is there a final tip that you have for your fellow artists?
what I would say is to push through and to really remember that every audition you get is because someone wanted you. And always remember that. There's always someone rooting for you and believing in you.
That's beautiful. And I can imagine that a lot of actors don't feel that way, and that this is something that your upbringing really was passed along to you and was made natural for you. But for a lot of artists, they get so much resistance from their environment, thinking that, that they're not going to make it and they're going to suffer, and you don't want your loved ones to fail at life, and so they're worried about them. But that is bringing the entire energy down, and that's why probably a lot of them don't feel like someone wants them and they're loved and they're someone supporting you. So thank you for those beautiful words, Emilia. That is a very wise message to share with the world. And I hope we see each other soon again.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much.